Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you a fantasy guide for beginners. This is going to be a new series that I'm going to be starting. And it's basically, I'm going to cover different genres and books that I recommend if you're interested in getting into that kind of type of book category. So I've included in here kind of a beginner's guide to fantasy. So what's a little different about these is that I don't include any of like the really popular book series, like any Sarah J. Maas, like any of those. So I didn't include those. These ones are more unique options that I think are a bit more broad in terms of their category. There's only a couple YA and then some adult fantasy, which I think a lot of you will enjoy. So I tried to include a little bit of writing, something a little different if you're kind of a little sick of like Sarah J. Maas. All those books are good, but I decided to mix things up a little bit and give you more of a variety and books that I think a lot of you will enjoy, but they're not really necessarily talked about a lot on BookTube. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is actually something really funny. I noticed all the books that I picked are a part of trilogies. I didn't mean for that to happen. It's just how they worked out. I guess I like trilogies a little bit better. But this first book is a part of a series, and it is the Cousins O'Dyer trilogy by Nora Roberts. I did a review of this book, which I'll link up in the cards and down below if you want to go check it out. But basically this is about a family that I want to say like in the 1400s. They're part of like witches, and there is this dark sorcerer who is after their mom, and so she sacrifices herself to kill the main sorcerer, and the kids kind of flee, but she didn't kill his soul completely. So he's been haunting this family for centuries and centuries until present day, where we get introduced to the current like two siblings and then one cousin who are kind of like that circle again, who kind of represent those kids that were from the 1400s. And so they have to come together and finally defeat the dark sorcerer that's been haunting their family for years, like finally put an end to it. It kind of has a very Harry Potter-y feel to it, I will say. So if you're looking for something that's like an adult Harry Potter, I think this would be perfect for you. But what I really like about this is that it basically covers like each book covers a different book. So this one, Dark Witch, covers one cousin, the next book, Shadow Spell, covers another, and then the last book also like is a different cousin. So what I like about these books is that each book focuses on each of the cousins that are involved with it, and then it also kind of has a time aspect to it as well, where we kind of flash back to the cousins when they original cousins or the original siblings when they were younger, and what they're going through, and how their story has a very kind of parallel storyline with what we're introduced to in here. And what is neat about these kind of witches, I guess you could say, is that they have an animal companion. So in this one, the one that this book's based on is a horse, the other one's like an eagle, and the other one is a dog. So I really like kind of that aspect to it as well. It does kind of go along with the Harry Potter feel, like it has like kind of like the same plot after kind of towards the end of the school year. Harry kind of gets reintroduced to Voldemort, so it's kind of like that. But I really like this book. It was really neat. It kind of had a really unique kind of magic system to it as well, so that one is really good. This is more towards the adult side of it because there are some adult scenes in it, I will say. So maybe read this if you're a little bit like 18 or so, but I think a lot of older people who are looking for more kind of adult fantasy books, I think this is a good trilogy to get into. Nora Roberts, I've heard, like, this is my first series that I've read of hers, and I've really enjoyed them, so I cannot wait to start more books in the future because I think a lot of them will be really interesting. She writes really good trilogies, so I think a lot of you will like this series overall. So if you're looking more into it, all the info about these books and series that I'll be talking about will be linked it down below, and like all the books in the series, so you can go check that out. So this is a series that I started to read in high school and I was totally obsessed with, and it is the Gemma Doyle trilogy by Libba Bray. I've heard people mention it, but I'm surprised it's not as popular on BookTube as like how much I loved it. I thought a lot of people would be more into it than I was. But basically it follows a girl named Gemma who kind of gets, after her mother has died in a tragic accident, she is sent to a kind of boarding school for women during Victoria, England, and while she's there she kind of uncovers these powers that she has, and all like this dimension stuff, and like all I like love this book series growing up. I fled through them. So A Great and Terrible Beauty is the first one, Rebel Angels, and the last book is The Sweet Far Thing. So these books kind of have I basically, when I was younger, I was like, this is like Harry Potter but just with a female protagonist, and I really like this because it does have some supernatural aspects and like going to like a different dimension and world, which I really enjoy reading. I really liked also the Victorian England, like 1800s, like reading from there, just in how they describe the culture and what's expected of girls, because Gemma doesn't want to be like all prissy in her dress. She doesn't want to be like that. She just wants to be herself and not forced to be someone she's not. So I really liked Gemma. She's a really good heroine, and so I think a lot of you, if you're looking for something with a strong female protagonist with good friendships and just something a little different, I highly recommend that you check this series out. I loved it growing up and it was just really, really good. So then kind of more adult fantasy series that I think you should check out is The Queen of the Tearling by Erika Johansen. I know a lot of people have talked about this book, and there's a lot of polarizing views on this series, but I love this. So basically it follows a girl named Kelsey who, when she was born, her mother sent her to live with this couple in the woods because there was people out to get her. So when Kelsey turns 18, she has to go back and reclaim her throne for her kingdom. And what I like about this book is that it takes place in the future, but it is a regressed society, so they don't have the technology that we have. They live in their own little like island that we don't really know beginning how they got there. But Kelsey is a really unique heroine. I think she speaks her mind. She doesn't really care what she looks like. She could care less about being in a relationship. Her main priority is to keep her kingdom safe, and there's a lot of political and religious aspects to this book as well, and it does raise questions about our societies and the flaws and aspects of our society. There's one quote in here that Kelsey said about religion that I literally was like, clap, clap, clap. That was amazing. So I really like it. Also like in terms of like rape culture and how women are treated as second-class citizens. It also kind of raises questions about that as well, which I really enjoyed. This series is amazing. I know it got a lot of mixed reviews, but I genuinely really enjoyed it. It was amazing. Kelsey is probably one of my favorite heroines ever. She's really good. I will say this is more of a mature series, so maybe read it when you're older. It's not directed towards YA younger teens. I would say this is more like 18 and up because it does have some dark subject matter that may not be appropriate for all readers. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, I've heard this. Emma Watson has praised this book as well for its feminist like little twists to it. And I think she might be starring in a movie. I don't know. I haven't heard anything since this book was released a couple years ago. But yeah, I really enjoy this series. It is really good and I highly recommend it. So this is also one of my favorite trilogies, and it is The Remnant Chronicles by Mary E. Pearson. And this book is kind of a lower end fantasy. I will say it's not like very complex. It's not like a high fantasy series. But this story follows a princess named Leah who on her wedding day flees and goes with her friend to go live in the countryside. She does not want to be tied down to an arranged marriage, so she kind of runs on her wedding day and never looks back. So she wants to live a simple life. So, and then while she's there, this book is also told from three perspectives. It's told from Leah's perspective, the assassin who is sent out to kill her from a neighboring country, and then the prince who Leah was supposed to marry but she had never actually met. So this book, basically for the first part, it keeps you guessing on who, because it's just told from the assassin and then the prince, but we don't know who these characters are until halfway through the book. But what I really like about this book is how this one was just laying out the groundwork for bigger things to come in the second book in terms of political turmoil and like all this other stuff going on. This is probably one of my favorite series ever. The last book came out last year, which I'll have a review for up here, and it was really good. And overall, this is like a 5-star series for me, along with The Queen of the Tearling. Like, I really enjoyed these. Leah is a very strong female heroine, and she's just really unique. And I like the kind of the magical system in here because the girls of her family are supposed to have a gift where they can kind of see things, like the sight, but she doesn't have that, and she's kind of struggling with that. But She's not physically strong, but she uses her intelligence as a weapon, so she is always one step ahead. So that's a really good breath of fresh air in terms of like comparing like the Selena Sardothians, who are like strong fighters. Leah and both Kelsey are not very strong physically, but they are strong mentally and intellectually, which is really nice to read from. So this is a series that I highly recommend you check out. It is so good. And then lastly, this is a series that had a lot of hype, I want to say maybe a couple years ago, but it's kind of died down, but I haven't heard anything about it after like people started reading the first one. Like there wasn't much to it after that, but I think it is a series well worth looking into, and it is the Soul and Songbird series by Danielle Jenson. This is a book that follows a girl named Cecile who is in France and one day ends up getting captured by trolls who live under the mountain, and basically it's a mystery as to whether or not these trolls actually live there, but they're kind of forced there by a witch who cursed them for like hundreds of years ago, and she's the one who's kind of seen as one to kind of break the spell. But it kind of, I know it sounds weird like trolls, but they're a little different than like the Harry Potter trolls that you are kind of introduced to. They're very different, and what I really like about this, it is kind of has a little romance aspect to it, but it basically is an adventure book, which I really like. I loved all the characters and the dynamics and just how things were changing, and I grew to really love like the community under the mountain, just the dynamics there and how it kind of reflected our society in terms of like eugenics and all that stuff. So it was really neat to see, and how like a witch kind of ties in here at the end. I love this series. I flew through it when I was reading it. I think this was my last year of my undergrad. I remember reading these and I love them. They're really unique, and I also like how they showcase French culture during, I want to say maybe 1800s, 1600s, I don't know, but I really loved it. It is a really unique book. I think you should just go into it not really knowing a lot about it, and then just kind of reading it as you go. Like the book series is really good, and I highly recommend you check it out because I think a lot of people will really enjoy it, and it's very atypical from what you typically see in YA fantasy, so it's a really good fresh like breath of fresh air. So I highly recommend you check this series out as well. So that's it guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite fantasy series are, if you have any that you think I should go check out. So yeah, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys!